Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So I thought I would do another video, and this one is going to be on user groups and networking. And I might do another video that's sort of more generally like just just networking and sort of how to go about that. But I'm going to talk about user groups in this one just because I wanted to do sort of a little bit of a quicker video because it's the week of Thanksgiving and stuff and just sort of logistics. This is probably going to come out afterwards, but like when I'm recording this, it's Wednesday night, so get stuff going on for tomorrow. So I wanted to do a quickie, and I want to talk about user groups. And despite the fact that I think they're a little bit out of fashion these days and not something that people use quite as much, I still think they're a really interesting idea and something that I think might be really useful for you to look at. So let me go jump over to my sort of presentation view, and we'll jump in here. So yeah, user groups and networking. Um, Before we get into it, I wanted to say thank you guys. Just like always, you've been wonderfully supportive with all of the comments and views and subscribers and stuff. I mean, it's been a little over a week since I posted my first video, and I've got almost 100 subscribers on my YouTube channel, which is bizarre, um, but really cool. So yeah, thanks for that. Although I have taken the feedback loud and clear. Apparently, people were not into my how to get a raise as a Linux admin video because that got like 0 upvotes. I think it got voted down a couple times in the R Linux admin group. So duly noted. What I will say though is if you have subjects that you would like me to talk about, if you can help steer me in a direction that is the most useful for you guys, please give me that feedback. I'd love to hear what you guys would be interested in hearing me talk about. The next thing on the agenda is a beta Docker class that I'm going to be doing. I've mentioned it before in some of my previous videos. I do technical classes, online training, and in-person training as well for a bunch of different stuff, mainly focused on storage and Linux. So I do a lot of classes on NetApp and a lot of classes on Linux, specifically SUSE Linux. And if you go to the link sort of below me, and I'll try to go put that in maybe the notes down in the bottom. You can go to my site, and it'll have a link to mainly Fastlane, where I do most of my training through. But I'm currently developing a new class, which is going to be on Docker and Kubernetes. So technically, it's actually going to be 2 separate classes, but I'm imagining that I'm probably going to be sort of putting them together as a bundle. Each one will be like a 2.5-day class. And I'm almost done putting the Docker class together. Maybe got another week or two of sort of putting the polish on that. And I think I should be getting to a place where it'll be ready for an initial teach. And what I'd like to do is have some folks take that class and then give me feedback and also let me sort of figure out how long the lectures are going to take, how long the labs are going to take people, and just try to figure out a more finalized outline and sort of course schedule for the class. And as such, I thought it might be an interesting way to do it is to offer you guys the option to potentially take it. So it won't be a massive class. It's going to be a limited number of slots for people. I'm imagining maybe 5 or 6 people. We do it online. I'm imagining maybe over a weekend. So if you're somebody who doesn't think that you'd be willing to sort of spend a weekend doing a class, then please don't sign up for it. And it probably wouldn't be free either. So what I imagine I'm going to be doing, and I'm still sort of working out the details of this in my mind, but what I imagine I would be doing is giving about a 90% discount on the course. So I haven't finalized the prices of this yet, but I think for the purpose of the beta, I'm guessing maybe like 125, $150 would be sort of where I'm going to be shooting for that. And remember, this is a instructor-led class, so if that's 2.5 days, that's going to be about 20 hours of my time, right? So I'm not going to be making very much money at all. You'll be helping me out, but it's still something where it'll be taking enough of my time that I think you'd be getting a lot of value from it. And um, I'd still need to charge a little bit of money, also, so that people will show up. If someone spends $150 on something, they're probably not going to flake at the last minute. Whereas if I try to do a beta class and then only one person shows up for it, I'm not going to really be able to gauge accurately how long labs are going to take or get enough feedback to really make that worth my time. So if you are interested in doing that, make a comment in the YouTube video below. And then once I figure out when that's going to go run and all that kind of stuff, I will try to reach out to you. And yeah, so I'll get back to you probably through YouTube. You get my website down below. I don't know if I want to do it that way. Email tends to get lost. Make a comment down below, and then we'll figure out how to how to get in touch with you guys and all that kind of stuff a little bit later on. So what is a user group? So a user group is exactly what it sounds like. It's a group of users that are interested in a particular thing. There are, well, probably were, there might still be, Amiga user groups and Mac OS user groups, and in our case, the thing that we care about, Unix user groups. Also, Linux user groups, right, or lugs, as sometimes they're referred. So they're great. They're not something we see a huge amount of anymore. It's just sort of people have approached the way that they use the internet differently now. Generally, what you'll do is you'll go to, something like, a more sort of central website, linuxquestions.org, or you'll go to, like the our Linux admin subreddit, and you'll ask questions there. Things like that. So that tends to be pretty common. There's a lot more information about these things. There's a lot more people using it, so it's not as niche as it used to be. So, I mean, back in the day, finding somebody else who knew what Unix was like a big deal. So Unix user groups were really great because it was a way for people to go find each other. And the big thing about user groups that's a little bit different than what we see sort of the more modern incarnations is they're typically geographically based. So you would have the LA Linux user group. You would have the Seattle Linux user group. You would have the the Boston Linux user group, Unix group, things like that. There's been variations on it. One of my first introductions to these was the BCS, Boston Computer Society, back in the day. It wasn't Unix specific, but I've got some fond memories of those folks and the old BBSs and all that kind of stuff. So why am I recommending that you consider using one of these? Especially given that they're typically things like mailing lists, right, and such. It's not the most modern way of doing things. It's because of that geographic element, right? They're in your area, so that means it's very, very useful for finding people and specifically networking for job stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my other screen real quick and take you to one example of this. This is uuasc.org, which is the Unix User Association of Southern California. They've got 2 chapters, one in Orange County, one in LA County, and I just happen to live in Los Angeles. So this is the users group that I've been a member of for probably around 17 years or so. And at this point, if you go on the mailing list, it's pretty quiet. We don't see a huge amount of stuff on there, but we do have, um, some interesting things. They have some meetups, and they have, monthly meetups. They also have some sort of references to other groups that they're sort of affiliated with. LA Linux User Group and some other kind of groups that are available. And this isn't the only way to go do it. So, if you're interested in a sort of a more modern version of this, but a similar kind of idea, if you go on meetup.com and you do a search for Linux, this just happens to be in my particular area, you can see that there is a lot of different Linux user groups. There's, LA Linux meetup, there's Linux server meetups, there is Ubuntu, and these have a fairly decent number of members that go to them. Now, the thing that I've found with these is this is definitely a cool thing, and I think this is a really good idea that they're available. Um, but because they don't have the mailing list, I find people they sort of come in and out of the user groups, whereas with the more traditional Unix user group where you have a mailing list, what you can do is you can basically just sign up, and then passively you have this sort of constant, maybe a couple times a month, email kind of bounce back and forth where you sort of catch up with these people. So it's sort of both in person as well as online. So let me go jump back over here. So that's UUAC. They're really nice. And it's a really good way to go do this. So I despite the fact that they're not the most modern kind of version of this, I think that this is a really nice way to go do it. As we talked about before, meetup.com is a great sort of alternative to this. But I think if you can be on a mailing list, that's a better way to go do it. The other thing about this that I think is useful is a lot of people who are on these mailing lists signed up like 10, 15 years ago. So they may have been relatively new to this when they first signed up, but now they're very likely an IT director or in a pretty senior role because they've been doing this for quite a while now. So it's a good place to do some networking. Right? So mailing lists are super useful, and one of the aspects of a mailing list that I think is great, and especially being that these are fairly small, is you can use these to build up karma, right? So when you ask a question on the mailing list, right, you're, asking people for their time to go help you fix a problem. If every single time you see a question show up on the mailing list, you spend some time researching it and do a really good job answering that question, well, you're now sort of paying into an account, and you're going to get a lot of positive thoughts in terms of like, oh yeah, this person helps people out. And then later on, when you have a question, right, those people will be willing to potentially answer you because you've built up that karma. Additionally, oftentimes user groups are smaller now. So, if you're doing the same thing on, a sort of larger website like on Reddit or something like that, people aren't necessarily going to remember you. Also, you might not want to go use your real name. A lot of people don't use their real name on sites like Reddit, things like that. So, it's you don't necessarily get that associated with you. But it can be a really useful way of sort of putting yourself out there, building up good karma, getting a good reputation, and kind of thing, that kind of bit. And then later, when you actually go to a meeting and you see those people in person, it reinforces that, right? So that's a really cool thing. You can find mentors through there. As I mentioned before, there's people that have been doing this for a really long time. You can also get speaking opportunities. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do now. is back in the day, I gave a couple talks on external penetration testing and intrusion detection systems. And the first talk I gave, I was sweating bullets. I mean, literally, you know, my shirt was like damp afterwards because I was so nervous. Um, but it got me out there, and it got people familiar with my name. And later on, I actually went on a job interview, and after the fact, after actually getting the job, I found out that after I had interviewed another person who worked at the company, I'm not going to mention their name or anything, actually walked over to the office of the person who had interviewed me and said, "Hey, is that Nick Bernstein? I saw him do a talk a couple months ago," and they said the talk was over at Sun Microsystems because that's where the Unix User Association group at the time held their meetings, and you know that sounded really good, right? Like I think that may have sort of tipped the scales and gotten me that job, where it sounded like, wow, this guy has some credentials. He's given security talks at Sun Microsystems, and you know, little did they realize it was a pretty small conference room that we were borrowing after hours to maybe 30 people, but it gets you out there. You can go put that on your resume. That looks pretty interesting. So if you're new to this, I'm not necessarily saying that this is something that you should jump right into, although it can be a great way to learn stuff. Later on, one of the videos that I have planned is sort of putting yourself on the hook for a new technology. That's one of the things that I did. When it came to Nessus, which was an external penetration testing tool, it's something that I had been meaning to learn, but I didn't really have a huge incentive to go do it. I had a full-time job at the time and things like that. So what I did is I volunteered to give a talk on it like 6 months out. So now I had 6 months to get really expert level at Nessus because I was going to have a room full of engineers that I didn't know, you know, you know, pinging me on it and going through questions and stuff like that. So, you know, yeah, I already talked about the idea of the building karma thing, but all of those are sort of paying into that karma bucket. Giving those talks, answering people's questions, all that kind of stuff. You build a reputation, and the world of IT is really, 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 really small. It seems big, it's really, really small. The more stuff you can do to help other people, that's going to pay itself back. It may not pay itself back immediately. It may not pay itself back in the exact way that you expect or hope, but it'll pay itself back. So that's definitely something to kind of consider doing. So yeah, go out and join a user group. Get on a mailing list. Ghost for a while. See, kind of what people ask, and maybe go through some of the archives and learn how to ask questions. I'm going to have another video on that at some point in the future. Make sure that if you're asking questions on a mailing list, you're really sort of following old school internet protocols about like how to ask a proper question, because that's the last thing you want to do is have people sort of think you're a noob. Well, it's all right if you're a noob, but you're a noob with potential. Is what you want. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you like it, give me a thumbs up. Any comments that you have on stuff that we could use as a topic in the future would be greatly appreciated. That's definitely something I'm looking for in terms of trying to figure out like what are you guys looking to get out of these, because generally the feedback has been really positive, but I want to make sure that as I keep making these, it's going to be relevant for you. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day. I'm sure that by the time I post this, it'll be after Thanksgiving, but I hope that you all had a nice Thanksgiving if you're in the U.S. If you didn't, well, I hope you had a great Thursday, because it's nothing wrong with that. So have a great day. See you in the next video. Bye bye.